This is why we got it so cheap, because the engine is a fucking boat anchor. This thing, you need to take this thing, weld the fucking chain to it, and every time you get out of your car, just fucking throw it on the ground. It's a fucking anchor, I swear to God.
Home to port.
What's going on, guys? Bankrupt on Two Wheels here for another episode of Wreck Bike Rebuild Garage, the show where my buddies and I take wreck bikes, turn them into dream bikes, and we give them away. On today's episode, we find how much Chase can push his credit card because we are going to be making the purchase order for fixing or rebuilding our CBR1000.
I think that thing is going to melt.
It probably is. For you guys that are new here, for whatever reason, click down below. There's going to be a link for the entire season of us rebuilding the CBR1000 into a Street Fighter. Today, we're going to start the episode by disassembling the cylinder head, which is the last piece of machinery we've got to disassemble. At that point, we will have disassembled the entire engine. Legit. They're like literally every piece is organized and taken apart. Yeah, the top even comes off. It's like a toy. Check it. So if you guys are interested in how engines work meticulously, we've put out 4 1-hour-long videos of breaking the engine down. So there's tons of knowledge, like I said, that top link down below. And if you guys want to help support the show, patreon.com/Chaseontwowheels. That is how we do this, and that's also how you win the motorcycles. All right, so without further ado, guys, we're going to get into how to disassemble a cylinder head. Brian, step 1, cylinder head removal. What we got to do?
Done, step 1.
Sweet, all right.
No,
okay,
we've already removed the camshafts from the cylinder head because we wanted to inspect them.
Right.
We did that a couple of weeks ago, a couple of episodes ago.
Indeed.
So now we're going to prep the cylinder head to send out to have it machined.
That's like, let me get over here and let's have a conversation because people might not know what the plan is.
So what we're trying to do here is we didn't just want to, if we were going to rebuild our engine all the way from the crankshaft up, that makes no sense to not do some upgrades. So what we had planned on doing, there is a lot of different things that you can do to the internals of this engine to make more power. We're not going to go too crazy. We're going to give this bike to somebody, and we want to make sure that it's not a complete death trap. You know, we don't need to give a leader bike that makes 190 rear wheel horsepower to somebody that may not be ready for it. So we are going to have the cylinder head flowed, and I'm going to explain that as we get into everything. And then we're also going to have the same company that's going to flow the head is going to cut fresh valve seats and put a higher performance camshaft in it. So when we get the head back from the machinist, it will be complete. We won't have to touch it except to put the cams back in when we assemble it onto the engine so we can put the timing chain back on. So,
and that's what this piece is going to be like. This piece is going to be ready to ship out when we finish this episode today.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get into it then.
Okie dokie.
All right, Brian, step 1 of disassembling.
Okay, so like I said, we've mostly disassembled the cylinder head. What we need to do is we need to remove all of the valves, springs, valve seals, valve spring, seats, and caps. All that stuff needs to come out.
That seems very meticulous.
It is fiddly work. There's a lot of small parts in here, and there's a lot of spring tension on all these small parts.
Okay.
So it is a bit fiddly to do this. You can make a mess of it. So just take your time. That's really all you need to do is take your time. Okay. There is a couple different versions of a specialty tool that you would use to remove the valves from the cylinder head. Okay. Now, I purposefully got us an old school one. It is a little cumbersome, but it's a lot safer to use for a beginner.
Okay, and I assume you'll just explain that as we get into it and stuff like that.
If you would like to grab the special tool, it is the valve spring compression tool that we bought. Looks like a big giant C-clamp.
Got it. Ah. This thing looks new. It's a mystery box challenge.
Okay.
I think this is gonna call for a different camera for this, so we're gonna get into doing this, and Brian can explain it.
So what is this?
Let's
This is a valve spring compression tool.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're holding the back of the valve with part of the C-clamp, and the part that you put on here, you want to make sure you use the wide spot.
Okay.
And not the pointy one.
I see.
You want to use a wide spot up against the inside of the valve.
Right.
And then you use one of these cups. They go over the valve.
Okay.
And then as you tighten it, it compresses the spring.
Okay.
And then it allows you to remove the little keepers in there that are holding everything
That's why
together.
there's these little journals or openings on the side.
Yes, so you can get in there and grab the stuff that needs to be removed. So when you do this, you want to set your rear up against the valve, and then you don't want to turn this anymore because it'll scratch the inside of the valve.
Okay.
If you scratch the valve and it digs in a little bit, and then there's like a little piece of metal hanging up, that turns into a hot spot.
And then things blow up.
And then it starts to burn.
Got it.
So you want to make sure that that doesn't get damaged, and from here you just compress the spring.
Oh, those things aren't, like, that's not that hard to turn for you, or are you just like super strong?
Nope, it's not that difficult. Now you can see the little keepers in there.
Yes.
I need a magnet. I need something small enough to get in there.
Jesus.
Thanks, Chase.
A little bit chaotic today, huh?
Yeah. Feisty, man.
Goodness.
Hey!
Okay, so there's one.
Those are, dude, this is meticulous work. Holy.
There's
Set that
two.
down next to that one.
Okay.
Whoa.
These are all that hold your valves in the cylinder head. Those little cups
That's terrifying.
and spring pressure. So have you heard the term of floating a valve?
Yes.
So what floating a valve means is you get the engine spinning so fast that the spring can't keep up. And the valves don't close all the way before they start to open again.
So that's a bad thing.
When that happens, that spring loses its tension and you could spit one of those out.
Oh,
So floating valves is bad besides the fact that if the valve doesn't close all the way, the piston can hit it on the way up.
right.
But you could also spit a valve out.
How do you fix having floating valves? You just adjust?
No, they go boom.
Desmodromic, dude.
Yeah.
That's how you fix it.
That is the only way to stop a potential floating valve. What they do is they just add springs to it.
Luke's been waiting for this moment.
And I'll show you what I mean by they add springs to it in just a second here.
In one of the very few moments of Chase actually thinking about what he says,
This is your spring cap,
Okay, so now that that thing's off, this thing just comes all the way out.
pretty much. So you can see
Whoa.
that there's different tiers.
Yes.
So different tiers means that there's different levels of stuff in here. Just like this.
Oh, so you can use, like, so you'd have to have a magnet for this job.
It makes it a whole lot easier. So this is your outside spring. Okay. This is the one that is firmer. And then your inside spring, thinner wire,
Right.
thinner coils. This one is a little bit softer. So
Okay.
between the two, your valve shouldn't float.
So if one of those falls on the ground, bye. You ain't never find it.
I don't particularly like to reuse those.
When we buy all the, do we have to buy new ones of these?
Just the keepers.
So
Actually, I don't know, because the whole head, all this stuff is going to go with the head, because I think they actually want an assembled to make sure that they have all the parts,
right,
but we'll have to get on the website and
right.
see what they need. So if for some reason you're pulling valves and you're just putting them back in again, the same exact valve in the same exact hole, you can reuse the keeper if you really want to. I don't particularly like to. If at all possible, I try and use new ones if sometimes you don't have that opportunity and you have to put the old ones back in again.
But it's not one of those things that has to go.
They want to go, everything wants to stay with its original.
Whoa.
Here's your first.
Did you just pull that out?
Yeah, it just slides through the hole. All right, so there's your valve.
Wait, so
You could
there's
see-
a little lip at the top.
Right, see the little, and then
okay.
if you can get tight enough in on
Got it.
those, you could actually see that there's a little barb in it.
Okay, you pulling that out, everything now makes sense. Those clip into that and hold everything else.
So that sits like that in the groove.
Right.
And then the spring tension pushes up from behind it.
Yeah, and it can't ever go anywhere.
And it really can't go anywhere. Unless for some reason you take the pressure off the cap and these can fall out.
Right.
But it doesn't happen
We
often.
have got to get a close-up of that thing because that little lip makes everything make sense.
So the valve keepers clamp onto the valve stem.
I'll show you. Right, so let's just suppose that the springs are on.
Right.
This is the seat that goes at the top.
Right.
So to put these on, you have to compress this down so this is exposed.
Right.
Then while this is all in there, you have to slide these little keepers in their home.
This sounds like the biggest job I don't want to do.
Right, until they both sit in the groove.
And then it pushes
and then
up
you
with spring tension.
release this, and now they're trapped in there.
Bro.
And this hangs in there at 15, 16, 18, 22, 25,000 RPM. Depending on how fast your engine spins. If you have a tappet valve, this is how it's installed. This is why having engines built is so expensive, because the amount of time that is necessary to remove 16 sets of all this stuff.
Dude, you're like working on a clock. You're working with tiny boys, and you got to know exactly.
And you're working with a clock ticking behind you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you're doing this, you can't just like sit down and people while you're doing it. When I do a motor, I tell everybody in the room that I'm doing a motor that day.
And just leave you the hell
And
alone.
I put a speaker right there, and I lay everything out, and I pay no mind to anybody. You have to be 100% focused on this to make sure that you don't screw anything up.
I mean, with parts like this size.
And here's the thing, you'll see when we put it back together, you can put those in wrong.
Oh, Jesus, of course you can.
So you can put those in, because when everything is all in here together and compressed, you can't really see a lot.
Right.
So you could take this keeper and put it in and push it down just beyond that little point where that doesn't sit in it. And then as soon as you start to unwind the pressure, the spring pressure shoots that thing off across the room, and it's like...
You'd never find that. If that went over there...
You find it because you hear it, because it's such a hard piece. You follow the bing, 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 bing. I mean, the amount of magnetism because of the steel that it is. Do you see them?
Oh, okay.
So they are super magnetic. Right, it's a hardened steel. So that is like, it's pretty much tool steel. You know? They're super magnetic. So if you have, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a shop floor magnet.
Yes, the big broom.
Yes. So if you have one of those, you kind of just roll it around, and you find all that stuff pretty quickly. So.
Brian, I just had a great idea.
Oh, so you have a finger to use to pull the stuff out?
Bro, I'm Magneto right now.
Well, your finger's going to be far too big to get in there.
Implanted into his fingertip.
Let me just grab one of these real quick.
Oh my gosh, that's so
handy. Yeah, he's got a little tiny neodymium magnet surgically implanted into his finger.
Wow, that is so smart.
So, Brian, what do you think about this spring? This is my new favorite thing.
The cylinder closest to the cam chain, this is where the cam chain goes, the cylinder closest to the cam chain is number 1. So this is number 4. Now if we're starting from this way and we're working left to right, then it's going to be cylinder number 4, intake valve 2. So
Okay,
C4, I2.
Cylinder.
Yeah.
4.
C4,
Intake, which is
2.
this side.
Yes.
2. We start 1, we go 2. I got it. Okay.
So it'll be 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I'm going to remove the valve seal, and then I'll show you what the seal looks like once I get it out. Now these are not reusable, because once you pull them off, you've ruined their sealing ability. Because you can't get them off without ruining them completely. So here's the valve seal. So if you could see inside of here, you can see where the valve will actually come out. And then this seal would go, that seal would go over the end of the valve. All right. The inner diameter of this side seals against the valve. And then the inner diameter of this side seals against the valve guide, that little nipple that sticks up in there. Can you see it?
Yep.
So that is the guide for the valve. It's about that long.
Okay.
And the valve rides up and down inside of it to make sure that it doesn't wiggle around. So those guides would leak oil everywhere if they weren't sealed, and then you would just burn all your oil in the cylinder. So that's your valve seal. And there's one more part in here. Okay. So this will be the full assembly of your valve train. Here is your spring seat. Spring 1, spring 2, right? And then all this would go on here. And then this will go on here. And then your keepers go on. I'm not going to mess with it because it's going to be very fiddly. And then this whole section, this is what's inside your cylinder head.
Right.
Okay, so all this space down here is what's physically inside the head.
Right.
That you can't see. So
each one of these has all of these parts.
Has all of those parts in each one, and there are 16 of them. So this is your tappet valve. This is your inner and outer valve spring. This is your valve spring seat. This is your valve spring cap. These are your valve cotters or keepers. And this is your valve seal.
And all of those together make the valve.
There's one more part that is inside the cylinder head that stays inside the cylinder head that makes up for the valve assembly, and that is the valve guide.
Okay, but disassembly-wise, that's everything.
Disassembly-wise, this is pretty much as far as you take it apart. Those guides are replaceable.
Oh, okay.
But that is like serious heavy-duty machine work.
Noted.
Because you have to heat sink the entire cylinder head and then hammer them out.
Nope.
Because they're pressed in to the point where you have to heat the head to hammer new ones in.
Hell no.
So the swelling of the metal allows just enough room for you to squeeze those out and squeeze new ones in.
That sounds like a great job for
And
a
then
professional.
after you've squeezed the new one in, there's a tool, it's called a reamer.
Right.
They are specifically matched to the diameter of your valves.
Okay.
So if you have a CBR1000 head, you have CBR1000 valve guides, CBR1000 valves, and a CBR1000 reamer.
Right.
What the reamer does is after you insert your valve guides in here, you run the reamer through it and spin it around, and it takes off any micro extra material.
Right.
So the valve can move up and down smoothly without catching on anything. So just to make sure each one of them is the perfect size before assembling with new valves, you run a reamer through all of them to make sure that they're all the proper size.
So, guys, we'll do the best we can. It's going to be a lot of the same work, right?
It's going to be all the same work we just did.
So we're just going to montage, blaze through this.
So
and
real
show you
quick
guys.
before we go ahead, I'm going to do one. That is the intake valve. I'm going to do one exhaust valve.
Are they different?
So we can put them side by side so you can see the differences.
Cool. Yeah.
And then we'll just montage
At
to
that
death.
point, we can
Roll that beautiful B-roll.
bean footage. Bean footage.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
So this is going to be C4 E2.
Yes.
Oh right, those are much smaller. Okay, C4 E2.
There's only one spring. I'm hoping that's the way all the exhaust valves are. There should be two. We're gonna have to double check the microfiche.
Dude, I swear to God,
Oh my man, look at the gnarly crusties on that thing. This is what ethanol does to your valves.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, so
they shouldn't look like that.
No, chiseling valves is normal, Luke. very typical thing to do. It's part of the valve check.
Look up my service video. It says that. I don't know.
Grab chisel, 2mm.
Just for reference for the camera, never chisel at your valves or beat them on stuff. But this valve has pretty much had it.
That's a shocker. So I was going to do this little face circle.
This valve was actually not seating. It wasn't sealing.
Just staying open.
We'll find out in just a minute when I take. Look how dirty.
Whoa. And you can see it with the other one. It looks totally clean. Holy crap.
Okay, so we could visually see before going crazy.
Let me move to mid spot.
So you could literally see between the two. This is the intake valve. This is the exhaust valve hole. And you can see around the edge where the valve would touch it. This one's nice and clean. And this one is covered in carbon. So wherever that carbon was, the valve didn't seal. So this was an extremely inefficient motor on top of being broken. So it was a broken, extremely inefficient motor before we took it apart. That's bad.
I'm really curious now if the rest of these have only one valve or one spring.
I am too. That's why I'm going to take apart the next exhaust. All right, I'm going to pull the very next exhaust valve now, just to see if it is also a single spring setup.
You want to hand me that and we can bag it?
Single spring. All right, I feel better.
Your fault if they
That.
And we're still on C4.
Again, another valve where it wasn't sealing. Look.
It really does look like mold. It's kind of crazy. And this is C4E1, right?
Yes. So, a form of stainless.
Form of worthless, if you ask me.
Well, form of stainless
Okay.
versus another very hard, high carbon steel, which is super strong, but it's a little bit heavier.
So if they do the same job, why are they made out of different things? They do kind of the same job.
They do. So the intake valves, as fresh air and fuel comes into the engine, they get cooled.
Okay.
The exhausts don't.
Oh, so one of them has to deal with different temperatures. I see.
Yeah, that's why they make them out of different materials. Also, the lighter the valve, the faster it closes.
Okay.
So you could use less spring tension.
Which is why the one versus
Now this
two?
is the 2-spring,
Oh,
but they want to make sure that the intakes close
yeah.
fully, you know what I mean? So if you feel that one, and then you feel that one, I think the exhaust is heavier.
Yeah.
So the smaller valve is heavier than the bigger one.
Right.
And you could obviously see the size difference.
Yeah.
So the intake side has 2 large valves, the exhaust side has 2 small valves.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is the exhaust gases are hot and expanding. So as soon as you crack open even a smaller valve, just the expansion of the heat is going to wick all that exhaust gases out of the cylinder.
Right.
The fresh air fuel coming in is only being drawn in by vacuum. So it needs a slightly larger hole to get everything in.
Right.
Which is why you get 2 different size valves. So the intake is
So-
always bigger than the exhaust.
And also, this only has one spring, but it's also getting pushed by the expanding gas, where this doesn't
They
have...
both are being pushed by the expanded gas. Why? I mean, I guess they figured out a way to make one spring enough to close the heavier valve at the right spring at the right speed rate and not float the valve.
It's Honda, so.
You know, yeah, I mean it's all R&D, and then for them it comes down to nickels and dimes and pennies, and if they can save 16 springs in every cylinder head for a CBR1000, that's thousands and thousands of dollars. You know?
Right.
So, okay, intake. Exhaust. You're welcome.
Played you for a fool.
So now I've got the 2 intake valves out, the 2 exhaust valves out, and you can totally see the difference in how much better the intakes were sealing versus the exhausts. So there's a way to fix it, and it's going to get fixed. So moving on. So there is another tool to do this.
Right.
You use it with a hammer.
That seems like you've messed up, like with intricate stuff like this.
So pretty much what it is, you take the cylinder head, you lay it flat where all the valves are facing downward, and then you take a bundle of rag or a big wad of paper, something that is slightly compressible but will stop compressing after a certain point.
Right.
And then you lay the head on top of it, and then the tool goes over the valve, and the tool pretty much looks like this at the end. It's like a solid piece of plastic with a countersink in it about that deep.
Okay.
And you put it over the head of the valve and hit it, and it pushes the spring cap down, and the cotters will pop out.
I wouldn't want to do that with those tiny.
But I mean, I'm not talking about that's not how you would do it. It would be completely disassembled.
Oh, okay.
So you can't, obviously, you can't put something on the back of the valve unless the head is off and on your bench.
Right.
So you hit it, and the cotters pop off, and you just fish them out with a magnet, and you disassemble. And it is way faster, but you really can't see anything that's going on.
Yeah, I'm glad,
You know,
I'm
so
glad we went with this.
to do it this way, you could see, and then when you do that, when you hit it with a hammer, sometimes you don't hit it hard enough, and the keepers don't pop out.
Right.
So you got to hit it 3, 4, 5 times because you don't want to, whoa, bam! Because if you miss the tool and you hit the top of the head, it's now garbage.
So would you use the hammer if you were at like a...
If I'm working at speed and I'm timed, you know, if it's just a flat rate job, I would absolutely use that tool.
Right.
If I'm doing my own stuff, I'd probably do it this way, but anytime I'm being like,
Yeah, because you want to be...
I'm under the clock.
You're getting paid more.
I want to do it. And then they have a very similar installation tool, but instead of hitting it with a hammer, you just use hand pressure.
Okay.
So the tool holds the cotters.
Okay.
You like rest the cotters in the tool and you put it on the valve and then you just push it. Boom! And you hear them snap and click, click. And they're in. But again, you can't see anything that's going on.
Right.
And I'd have to say that tool has only been available to me for like the past maybe 10 years. So any of the motors that I did before that, I had to do them by hand like this anyway. So... Okay, so when you set this up,
Okay.
you really want to get this up against the valve and then don't move it.
Okay.
You don't want this thing doing this on the face of the valve while you're trying to tighten it.
Okay.
Try and get this part centered in the valve so it touches, and you can let it go and it'll stay, and then crank it on.
Got you. So don't crank until you get everything seated in.
Now you may need to, like, you know, take a little pressure off, center it, and then as you tighten it, it may slip off. So you have to loosen it, get it recentered, and tighten it again.
I see.
The handle is here.
Got it.
Too is gross.
I think all the exhaust ones.
I'm so surprised this thing ran. How did it run? I guarantee you this thing probably only made like 100 horsepower.
Nuh-uh.
That's bad.
It had a dead cylinder. Right? That one cylinder wasn't making power.
Right.
And none of the exhaust valves seemed to be fully sealed and tight. I mean, this thing was just bleeding power everywhere.
Ran on hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
What's wrong, Brian?
Come here. I need somebody else to put their fingers on this. See now the rest of these valves, they were kind of, you had to like
It was almost suction cup.
pull them out.
Yeah. It wiggles. Are you serious? Bro.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
If that's enough for you to see, that's far too much.
The whole point of that thing is so it only goes up and down. How the hell does that happen?
The guide is worn out.
That part that you said you had to heat up the whole head to change?
Either the guide is worn out or the valve is worn out. And the valve doesn't look that worn. Well, the good thing is it's going to the machinist, so they'll check all that stuff. And it needs new guides. They'll put guides in it. They'll just charge you extra to do it.
Okay, so we're still
It's repairable.
right.
What's that?
Wasn't that the really bad one?
This was the really bad cylinder. This was the one next to it.
Well, weren't those two the
These are the two bad cylinders.
largest offenders?
Yes, for sure. Okay. This is a C3E1.
Yeah, let me just get back to work.
It's like at this point, do we just buy a used motor?
Dude, people have been saying that in the comments of the videos.
That has me scared.
Ah,
You know, for lack of a better word. You know, I
don't say.
am not feeling very confident about rebuilding this right now.
Even if we sent that back.
So we would have to contact the machinist that does the head and be like, hey, we have a head from this bike. we would like to do this to it, but we think there's a little excess space in the guides. Do you replace valve guides also?
Right.
And if they do guides, and they say they do guides, and that's one of the things that they offer, we can send them the head and they'll just rebuild it and it'll be perfect when it's done.
Right.
You know? But besides that, guides are scary, man. That's a big deal. That's like replacing the sleeves in your cylinders. Is a very massive process.
It's that level of process as, is it worth doing it versus just scrapping
Buying a new
it.
head. Or buying just a used engine.
Yeah.
You know, I would not buy an engine that somebody else rebuilt because I don't know how they rebuilt it. But if it's a factory engine with low miles on it, it's acceptable. And at that point, we could like buy upgraded cams and drop cams in it.
Does it make sense that can you just buy a cylinder head?
Yes. Yeah. But then again, you still don't know what kind of shape it's in until you get it and rebuild the head.
No, I mean like an OEM cylinder head.
Like a brand new one?
Yeah.
3-4 grand. Assembled cylinder head. It's about $3,000-$4,000.
Oh, somebody.
You don't want to have to buy a cylinder head.
I don't want to do a lot of things, Brian. It seems like I'm going to have to.
When your head goes bang is usually when you buy a new motor.
So yeah, my question is, put it in perspective. That like 3-4 grand.
This is where all the horsepower comes
Right.
from.
What would it cost to just get a used but factory engine?
Probably about $1,500 for a whole engine. But then again, we're buying an engine from a 12-year-old machine. You don't know what kind of shape it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the paths that we can go down
Are none of them are fantastic. You know,
No.
unless somebody wanted to gift us a brand new factory built motor. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that shit ain't never gonna happen.
Hey, is there an engine fairy?
You can
You ever heard of engine fairy?
you in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up first.
Why would you smoosh it?
Give me cylinder for E1.
You're gonna see if they wiggle.
Yes, I'm gonna compare it.
Let me go through the archives. Cylinder 4 you.
There's zero wiggle.
Is that in the offending?
What if?
No, this is in the correct hole that it's supposed to be.
So what if you put that valve
it wiggle?
into the hole?
Yeah, put that valve in the hole that wiggles.
So we can determine if it's the valve or it's the thing inside.
Yeah,
No wiggles?
So it's the. So what is that piece called inside of it?
valve guide.
So the valve guide is bad too.
I have never pulled apart an engine that ran that had this many different things wrong with it.
People are going to think this was staged.
Bro,
They are going to think
This is why we
That
got
right
a
there.
12-year-old bike with, what was it, 8,000 miles on it, something like that, 9,000 miles on it. How many miles did it have on the engine? For
This
so
one?
cheap. This is why we got it so cheap, because the engine is a fucking boat anchor. This thing, you need to take this thing, weld the fucking chain to it, and every time you get out of your car, just fucking throw it on the ground. It's a fucking anchor, I swear to God.
Home to port.
C3 E1 as well.
That's a very good point, and it's getting close to cut your losses apart.
It is getting close to that, but we need to get in contact with the head people.
Yeah.
and see what they have to say about our situation, if they can help us out with it or not.
Man,
I mean, if not, we can reach out to Judd and see if he wants to try it. I don't want to do it myself. I can do it, but it's going to be.
You're talking about heating the head.
So you have
At the
to.
very least, we do a Judd and Brian try to fix it, just so we can film the process to fix it, and then at the very worst, we end up having to buy a new cylinder head.
So to replace the guides in this thing, you have to build an oven.
Yeah.
You have to bake the cylinder head to like 300 degrees. The whole head has to be heat soaked to 300 degrees.
And then you have to handle it at that heat and do the job.
you got to pull it out, put it on your stand, knock out a couple of guides, and then put it back in the oven because it starts to cool down.
Hey guys, guess what? More things f***ed up.
You could see the damage in that guide.
Not even joking. You guys probably saw us talking a little bit on the other camera that the last step, the last thing we're doing here, and we find even more things wrong. Brian, you want to...
If you were here during our explanation, there is a piece of steel that is sunk into the aluminum cylinder head that the valve's running up and down in, and that is your valve guide. That's why they make a guide. It's made out of a different material. The valve guides should have very minimal clearance between the sidewalls and the outside wall of the valve. There should be very little, if no, wiggle room for those valves within the guide. And we have got 4 out of our 16 valve guides in the cylinder head have some wiggle room. We are definitely going to have to reach out to the performance company that is going to flow our cylinder head, and I'll give you an explanation on flow in just a second, and see if replacing valve guides is one of the services that they offer. Hopefully they do, and we'll get a head back that's ready to roll. If they don't, we may have to start shopping for an engine. Let me give you a brief explanation on what we were referring to when I said that we were going to have our heads flowed. And what that actually means is they will, and typically when you have your heads flowed, they do all the work to the exhaust side of the cylinder head. Sometimes they will clean up the intake side, and I don't know if you could see in here. Let me get the flashbang out again. If you could see inside of here, down, this is the actual intake track. So the throttle bodies go on this side of the cylinder head, and then the fresh air fuel comes in through these ports, slips past the valves and into the cylinders that are underneath it. So sometimes they'll come in and they'll smooth all that stuff out. And sometimes they'll leave all the rough edges in there. There are different schools of thought on how that works.
Right.
So that's really up to them. Now, when they do actually do the flowing of the head, what they'll do is they will change the shape of the ports inside of here that come out from the exhaust side. It allows for better removal of the spent gases in the engine, so the engine becomes more efficient, and more efficiency creates more power. So it allows for higher velocity of speed into and out of the combustion chamber. And then couple that with a different profiled camshaft, so the valves are open for slightly longer periods of time and open a slightly higher. And you allow for more air fuel in and out of your cylinder. So hopefully our performance machinist that we found online will be able to take care of our issues with our cylinder head. And we'll be able to have everything taken care of, and we can put our engine back together. If we send this thing out to them and they say that there's nothing they can do about the guides, at that point we'll either start shopping a head or an engine, and that'll be something that we'll have to sit down and discuss at that point. So you never really want to find more damage to your engine after you thought it was fully disassembled. I mean, we were at the point where all we had left in this thing was the valves. Everything else has been removed. We found all the other damage in the engine, which is fairly substantial. There's a little bit of damage in a lot of different places, and there is a lot of damage in a couple small places. So to find more damage when you're taking the last couple of parts, disassembling the last couple of parts out of your engine is it's kind of a downer.
Yeah,
kind of brings the mood of the room down a bit.
Well, you have that process. We've spent, 6 days disassembling this engine meticulously and explaining everything. And we all came into today with we're going to finish the engine disassembly up, and we won't find anything else because we're done. And even here, the final stand, and it was still found stuff. And this is a pretty huge deal. We're talking now. We're playing the game of new engine versus parts and stuff.
We found all the Horcruxes.
Yeah, like I said, if we can get in contact with the people that we're planning on sending the head out to, If replacing valve guides is something they're capable of doing, we're good. We have no issues. We also want to find out from them if they want new valves or if they're going to supply new valves.
Will that be part of the charge that they just put in?
Well, yeah, I mean, they may take these and they may sonic clean them. Mm-hmm. And then if they're using the same size valve seats, they're a reusable valve as long as they are still within spec. So those ones that wiggle, the difference may be that the stem of the valve is worn out.
Right.
It may be that the guide is worn out. It may be a little bit of both. But until they go in there and measure it, it's hard to tell.
And obviously, guys, we're not going to be able to let you guys know what ends up happening on this episode. But when we wrap filming, we're going to go send out these emails now. And hopefully, by the next episode, we can update you guys. Obviously, if you guys are on our Patreon page, we'll update those guys instantly because we can do that kind of stuff. But for you guys here on YouTube, you are probably going to have to wait until that episode comes out. I mean, is there any... That's it, right? We've disassembled the cylinder head now.
Yeah, the only other parts that can come off of this fairly easily are the studs for that, but we don't need to take them off.
Right. Okay. With all the... I know we were talking about doing the price, like doing our order and everything now in this episode.
We need to find out what's going on with the head before we start wasting a couple of hours on picking parts if we're just going to purchase a motor.
Yeah, because
an engine.
This could literally change this entire build right here, or at least our expectation
process of the build. Well, it could shorten our time.
It could do a lot of things.
So Masters is going to ask a friend of his who rebuilds bikes.
Interesting. The benefits of having Patreon.
All
right, guys. So
cool.
I think.
Thanks, Dave.
Are they? So we're good. That's it. That's
show.
Yeah. Welcome to Wreck Factory Rebuild Garage. So guys, that's gonna be it for us.
This is what happens when you buy 12-year-old motorcycles that are blown up to rebuild.
And I would rather it happen to us so we can show these people what can happen, because
what would have happened to that bike if we didn't buy it?
A junkyard.
It would have went to the auction.
And then some poor idiot.
Somebody would have bought it. And then they would have bought a used eBay motor and pulled the motor out and put it in that thing. They'd be riding it right now.
But their job is not to teach people.
Or they would have just kept riding it until it blew.
Our job.
Oh, it was miles away from that.
We are the shield to help people, so this doesn't happen to them. And if it unfortunately does, at least they have some sort of guidance on what to do. So, guys, hitting the like button would be a huge help. Thank you guys for getting to the end of this video. If you guys do really enjoy this content, we would really love for you guys to consider supporting us over on Patreon. It's how we're able to go through this shit show of a show that we try to produce.
Show of a show.
But guys, I'm Chaseontwowheels. That's Brian. That's Bo. That's Luke. They are team behind, and we will... We'll see you guys in the next episode. If you guys want to watch more episodes of Wreck Factory Rebuild, there are links down below. There will be a link for this entire CBR1000 playlist, but if you guys don't know, we're also rebuilding a 300 and a 600. So all three of those are going to be given out this season of Wreck Factory Rebuild Garage.
A flat tracker and a race bike.
We're going to build a flat tracker, a race bike, and a street fighter. God willing at this point. But you guys can check all that out over on Patreon, patreon.com/Chaseontwowheels. We appreciate you getting to the end, and we'll see you on the next one. Hopefully we'll have some good news for you. Outro crew.
Do we rebuild it or buy?
Yeah, they've already answered that question.
Well,
build or buy? Yeah.
That's the patrons.
Yeah.
We're asking the YouTube outro crew.
Outro crew, you guys know what to do. OC for outro crew. Then state your comment. That way I can love your comments more.